What was your initial reaction when you found out that your old team was coming to your new ballpark?
Well, it's kind of like something you kind of expected, that the political forces would get together and want to do something like this. I mean, as was mentioned, Oregon doesn't deserve a 21 seed given their record in a lot of people's eyes. You could say the same for Clemson. You could say the same for Washington not being 16. There's a lot of things that could have been and maybe should have been, but they weren't. Definitely, you hope that politics doesn't take over sports, and unfortunately, you cannot say this wasn't politics. I don't know whose decision it was or what, but obviously it was somebody thought it was a good idea. It's going to create a lot of interest. That's what they want.
All right, let's go to Dennis next.
Hey, Coach, I'm not even going to ask you about Oregon, believe it or not.
Okay.
The NCAA just saying that it's out of their hands now. That's up to 100% capacity, no mask, no social distancing from their standpoint. Do you know if that necessarily for sure means you guys can open it up full, or is that something that you're going to have to wait for?
No, that's the first I've heard of it at 100%. The last I heard it was 50. All I know is that early in the week when ticket sales opened up, we had some people try to get on at 9 o'clock when it opened, and it span and it sold out within minutes. So obviously there's people who want to see this game live and they want to see it in person. So I can't wait to see it at 100%. And one of the tough things about COVID, when we came here, in 2019, we actually sold out our last 7 games of the season, and we were doing well into 2020. We'd planned to put seating in the outfield and the right field and expand the capacity up to around 1,600, 1,700 because the demand was there, and all of a sudden COVID hits. And so all we can hope for is, and we're grateful that we're playing again. That's the number one thing, is playing somewhere, playing again, playing in the postseason. And it's going to be great if we can get a full capacity. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I know it's now solely up to the local health authorities. It sounds like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you would be comfortable with a packed house, correct?
Absolutely. I think I don't know if they're going to have any requirements as far as vaccinations go. I don't know if that's going to be part of it or not. I know that, our team is completely vaccinated, which is great. That's, safety is a big thing, of course, especially when you bring in 4 other teams in, and you never know. But hopefully we have a mind towards safety, and if it is something about everyone has to wear masks if they're not vaccinated, I don't see a problem with having a full house.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, James, let's go to you next.
Mike, obviously you heard my last question there to Lauren, where I'm sure life really did move on for everybody on all sides of this for the last couple of years. Any point for you on Sunday where did this, frankly, unfairly rip off some scabs and bring back some, it was a very emotional transaction, what happened a couple of years ago. Did this bring back old wounds in any way for you?
Well, not necessarily. It's something like you expected was going to happen sooner or later. And we've all moved on with it. I think that, obviously it was very tough to leave Oregon, especially for the program that had been built and the program that was in place and the fan base, and things were going great. And just unfortunately, we weren't able to work out something that was mutually, beneficial for both parties, as far as myself and the AD. But we've moved on, and right now it's been difficult to kind of restart that. In some ways, it's a lot tougher than what I thought it would be. We had a great start, obviously, by bringing in some Oregon players, but some of the better, some good players coming into the program have certainly helped us. But we're still a year or two away from starting to get the program where I think it's going to be at a higher level than it is right now. I think, obviously last year was a very, very good team, and we would definitely probably made a run at in the World Series, if we had got there. If everything has to fall into place, don't get me wrong, you can have a very good team and not make it if things don't go your way and you don't play well. But things were lining up pretty well. We'd beaten some really good teams, and unfortunately it didn't finish that way. And we've struggled this year to get back to that level. Obviously missing, Miranda Elish was big for the program. But in some ways it's had other people step up. Sherry Larry's lifted her game. She's doing great. I think she's getting stronger as the year goes on. And obviously our hitting is pretty good. You know, we're definitely in the top 10 in batting averages for teams. So, you know, we will be a very dangerous team. Of course, we got to get past a tough regional. It's a very tough regional.
All right, Rosner, let's go to you next.
As somebody who's in the entertainment business to some degree, can you accept on that level that maybe the NCAA would arrange this for entertainment purposes, you know, a Texas, Oregon thing?
Well, you have to ask yourself, is that ethical? Is it ethical to put apart all the work that teams have done all year for the sake of drama or entertainment? Does it happen in other sports? I mean, I don't know I don't know that much about the NCAA basketball. I don't know that much. Hopefully it doesn't happen in football. You know, why is it happening in softball? And if that is the case, then some people need to take a good, hard, long look at themselves on why they're selecting these matchups the way they do. I remember several years ago when we had UCLA come up to Oregon. And at that time, UCLA and Oregon were the top two teams in the Pac-12. Never before has an SEC 1-2 matched each other in the Supers. So there's been some political stuff happening all along the way. You know, Minnesota wasn't in the top 16. I think they had 3 losses on the year. I mean, somebody needs to take a good, hard, long look at this, and it needs to be explained to some people.
Thank you.
All right, Eric Lopez, you're up next.
Coach, obviously a lot of talk about Oregon, but there's 2 other strong teams in this regional. Texas State, Ricky Woodard would argue, hey, we should be a 2 seed, not a 3 seed. And then you got St. Francis to draw here, a team that's been to the NCAA tournament before, and maybe, according to the RPI, one of the strongest 4 seeds. This is one of the toughest regionals in general. What's your thoughts on St. Francis? Is you going to open with them? And of course, Texas State, you've seen already.
St. Francis, number 1 pitcher, has a .85 ERA. Okay, I think that says a lot, right there. You know, and just looking at her stuff, she's got a good rise ball, she's got a good curveball, she's got a really good changeup. Definitely not looking past St. Francis, I'll tell you that, because, you know, maybe they don't have the depth of hitting that we do, but they certainly have a player hitting in the mid 400s. Maybe don't have the depth that we do, but, you know, you throw a shutout and you're going to win. So unless we score, we're in trouble. So we definitely know how good St. Francis is. And like you said, they've been there before, so it's not going to be, starry eyes for them. And then, of course, you know, we've played Texas State a couple of times, and Jessica Mullins can throw. You know, she's really good. And, so there is this, as you said, this is a pretty tough matchup as far as pitching goes. There's good pitchers on all 4 teams, and hopefully they don't go too many extra inning games and throw it off schedule. But no, definitely point taken. This is it's not just Texas and Oregon. You know, there's 2 other teams that are going to have something to say about it.
All right, we'll go to Jeff Barker next, and then we've got Ryan James and Jeff Jones after that.
Hey, Mike, kind of a 2-parter here. I guess the first part would be, you were talking about a packed house earlier. Just how excited are you for, the players from all the teams that are going to be here this weekend to play in front of a really good crowd, whether it's completely packed or not? And then the other one would be the weather doesn't look great right now. Do you kind of have a plan for that? I know that's sort of just what happens this time of year in these regionals and super regionals. Do you have a plan for if you guys get stuck in a long weather delay, or, how do you go about kind of trying to not think about it too much, but then also prepare for that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it has been taken care of already as far as its weather delays. You have certain areas you need to go to get out of, because it's not just weather, it's lightning. It's not just rain. But, the field here drains incredibly well. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. If it's not raining, we'll play. I definitely know that won't be an issue. We have really good ground crew here as well. But it's just a matter of waiting around and, not knowing when you're playing and the uncertainty of it all. And then, of course, if I'm not mistaken, you're going to make sure you win those games, whatever games you do play. Because if the game gets shortened, if the tournament gets shortened, it's whoever's unbeaten and then the higher seed, right? As far as I know. Of course, you don't want to look at that, but it does play into what you do. You got to make sure you win those games.
All right, Ryan, you're up next.
Mike, you mentioned that Oregon and Texas both have to take care of business against good teams on Friday to even get to that matchup. But what's kind of your early take if it comes down to that on Oregon and what Melissa's tried to do in terms of rebuilding and what's going to be like to see, Haley Cruz, someone who wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for the super senior route that they're allowed to take, and just your early scouting report on Oregon if it comes down to that.
Yeah, well, hey, there's no doubt. I mean, Missy's taken the approach of like football, get yourself a good quarterback and a lineman to protect the quarterback. And they've got really deep pitching staff. Obviously, that's the strength of their team without a doubt. And then they play good defense and they have enough players to score runs, and they hold on. And truthfully, they've hit the ball really well all year. They've got good speed, athleticism, and they've got different people contributing all the time. But definitely the strength is their pitching. I mean, very deep. I mean, they've got the lefty's throwing really nice, got great movement. Breedlove is throwing gas. I mean, I think she's hitting over 70 mile an hour. Same with Diaz. Diaz gets it up there. I mean, so they don't have a problem. If it comes down to playing 2 or 3 games in a day, I don't think it's going to bother Oregon too much. So that's definitely their strength. And, of course, several of the players on that team we recruited, before I left Oregon. So I know their capabilities and they're good.
All right, James, go ahead.
Mike, you're certainly as familiar with Haley's story as anybody, and she's most definitely not here if not for you taking a flyer on the recommendation of Kim Howard in the 11th hour before signing day and the like. As a player who has had as many wrenches thrown in her playing career as one can kind of have, and for this to really come full circle and potentially be playing you at the end of it.
Yeah.
What can you say to the player who you acquired days before signing day, and here we are 5 years later, and this is the kind of season that she's having?
Well, Haley's obviously, when Haley first came into the program, she didn't play a lot, but she learned a lot and she got better and she understood where she needed to get better. And now, she's one of the better players in the conference, if not the country. And she has a good arm. She has good understanding how to play the outfield. She's fast and she has a powerful bat. So she's really taken that next step into being one of the better players. And it's good to see, and she's happy. I mean, that's what I try to keep, I kind of follow Oregon just a little bit to see how some of the players are doing. You're always interested. It was a very tough call to talk to some of the players that are still there that I was leaving and the ones that were coming in that I was leaving. It's always the toughest call to make because they trust in you as a coach, and you tell them you're going to be there, and then all of a sudden you're not. It's difficult, but nothing's guaranteed in coaching, right? And unfortunately we had to make a move, but I am interested in how those players are doing, and I know they're excellent. And Haley's turned into quite the social media presence, right? She's taken that to another level. So. It's pretty kind of cool on TikTok. So, yeah.
All right, we'll go with Jeff Jones, and then we've got time for maybe 1 or 2 more before Coach needs to get to practice. Jeff, go ahead.
Coach, speaking of the social media presence, Lauren told us kind of about the negative side of social media. And I know recently you talked to us about the psychology of athletes. Have you seen the toll that social media can take in a negative way on your athletes?
Yes, I think so. I mean, everybody wants to be loved, everyone wants everybody to be thought of in a good way. And unfortunately, some of these people, and we're even seeing it, and it's kind of, I don't like this. You go to some of these places and they read out the NCAA statement about fairness and all this other stuff. And it's just words, because you get out there and there's grown men who are throwing insults at these young women. And if it was your daughter, you would be absolutely flabbergasted on what's going on. And yet, when I approach the umpires about it, they say, well, it's not our job. Well, whose job is it? I mean, do we want you've heard the stuff that happens at football games, right? I mean, how can you take your kids and your family to a football game and listen to some of the trash that comes out of people's mouths? And we're tuning into the same kind of thing in softball. Some of the stuff that's being said at some of these places, I'm not going to name places because they know who they are. And it's disgusting. So, and yet you got the same thing happening on social media. They're trying to goad these players into saying something they shouldn't say, and they're just trolling for reaction. And so the best thing to do that is just not to argue with them, is not to listen to them and not to read it. Because, coming from uninformed people, it makes no sense. They don't know what's going on. They think they do, but they don't.
So the Twitter blackout that your team is doing, it sounds like you are obviously in support of that. Do you know who kind of spearheaded that, and what does it mean to you?
Well, I mentioned it in the team meeting that I think something we should think about. I didn't mandate it. I said that, our focus needs to be on playing the game and not on following these things, because you're not going to win those battles. And unfortunately, and here's the bad thing, like I said, I'm not saying all people out there are bad. I would say 95% of the people are great. They're good. They have nice things to say. But unfortunately, it's the 5% of the bad ones that say the most. And that is the issue, and unfortunately, these young women are not able to censor that out and understand that. They're doing it for a reason. Why does someone say something like that? They do it for a reason, to distract you and get you upset. Don't let them. You don't let them by not having a social media account and not reading it. Unfortunately, you miss out on the good stuff that's being said. But, we need to have our focus on playing softball this weekend and hopefully the following couple of weekends.
All right, and with our time, James, I'll give you the last question.
Mike, I'm not going to ask you to predict the weather. You asked about it before and touched on the nature of it's always the most important to win the first, and then obviously to stay in the winner's bracket and win the second, especially if it's condensed. How do you go about preparing a team and informing them of those things that you mentioned, and also based on the current forecast, the potential to be playing very, very late in the evening, even on Monday into Tuesday, where, the latest start time is 11 p.m. local, and based on the current projections, you can't rule that out. So how do you prepare a team to potentially have to wait all day for 4 solid days?
Well, we talked about this yesterday. We had a sheet about controllables and uncontrollables, and I'm hoping on their one side of uncontrollables, weather's at the top. And, and we've been through that too. We started off the season where we had to cancel our first 2 weekends because of who has a freeze in Texas. So that kind of stuff happens, and we have to understand that you've got to wait. The game's going to come. But we're going to play, it's going to come. And so you can't get anxious about it. You just got to sit around. Fortunate enough, we're at home. I think that definitely helps when you're at home and you don't, not on the road as much. And so again, we've informed them that we have to worry about things we can control.